My name is William Michael. I'm the headmaster of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. And in this tutorial video, I'd like to walk you through this first lesson in our Intro to Classical Arithmetic course. If you're new to the Academy, I'd like to take a moment and just make sure that you see how our lessons are organized so that you can study them easily. At the top of every lesson, you'll find a list of tasks. These tasks explain what needs to be done to complete each lesson, and it gives you a simple step-by-step guide for how to study the lesson. So here you can see the first task is to study the lesson for mastery. What that means is you should start by making a quick first reading of the lesson just to learn what the lesson contains, a quick reading. Then you should reread the lesson more carefully, taking notes if you need to, so that you can learn the content of the entire lesson. On the Academy website, there's an article titled How to Study for Mastery, which will help you to understand what that first task really means. You can look that up some other time if you need to. This lesson is pretty simple, but there are some lessons that are very difficult, and that article will be very helpful. Task number 2 is to complete the memory work in this lesson. And then task number 3 is to complete the lesson exam or assessment. So if we begin with this lesson and we make our first reading, we'll just quickly read through the text to see what this lesson is about. Let's do this together. I'll read it, you follow along. We're beginning right here in the first paragraph of the lesson. We read, "In this first lesson of arithmetic, we will learn what arithmetic is and how it differs from the other mathematical arts and sciences. Arithmetic is a very ancient study, and we should never think that mathematics are something new. Calculators and computers may be new, but math itself is very old. Ancient Egyptians and Babylonians were famous for their understanding of numbers, and much of what we know today was discovered thousands of years ago in ancient times. For example, the size of the Earth was calculated by a Greek mathematician over 2,000 years ago. Philosophers discovered that there are 4 basic branches of mathematics, each with a different focus. Arithmetic is the study of multitudes by themselves. Music is the study of multitudes in relation to other multitudes. Geometry is the study of magnitude in objects at rest. Astronomy is the study of magnitude in objects in motion. This may be confusing now, but in due time it will be very clear. Arithmetic is the first of these arts to be studied because all of the others depend on our knowledge of numbers. We cannot speak of a quarter note in music unless we have first learned arithmetic. We cannot define a triangle or an octagon in geometry without first learning of numbers in arithmetic. We cannot study astronomy without the knowledge of geometry, and both depend on our knowledge of numbers. Thus, we do not merely study arithmetic for the sake of numbers, but also for the ability we gain to study other branches of mathematics and natural science. The most important thing about mathematics is that these studies are good for our souls. Mathematics help us to understand many things that we would not be able to understand by our senses alone. It is the gift of reason that allows us to pursue knowledge that our eyes, ears, nose, mouth, and hands could never help us with. For example, when we close one eye and hold our finger up in front of a distant tree, our sight tells us that the finger is larger than the tree. Our ears can't help us with this problem, nor can any of our other senses. It is our reason that comes to our aid and helps us to understand why a finger appears larger than a tree. Mathematics will help us with many such problems and allow us to study things we cannot sense, even things that belong to eternity. That's all you need to do to make your first reading in any lesson. Simply read through the lesson. I think reading out loud is always better. Just read through the lesson and learn what the lesson contains. Now, the second part of that first step, studying the lesson for mastery, is to go back, read the lesson again carefully, and learn every detail in that lesson. Your knowledge of the lesson will be tested in your lesson assessment, which is step 3. Step 2 requires you to complete the memory work for this lesson. And you can see that there are 14 memory work questions for this lesson. Now, when you're getting started in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, memory work may appear difficult, but as you get used to it, it will get easier and easier, and you'll enjoy the simplicity that memory work gives to your lessons because it makes studying just a matter of work. There's nothing confusing about memory work. It just takes time and effort. To do your memory work, you simply read the question out loud. Question 1, what is mathematics? And then read the answer to the question out loud. Mathematics is the study of quantity. And then simply repeat the question and answer until you can do it from memory. What is mathematics? Mathematics is the study of quantity. Once you have question number 1 memorized, you simply move on to question 2. What is a quantity? Quantity is anything that may be increased or diminished. Quantity is anything that may be increased or diminished. You simply move in that way through all of the questions and answers, reciting them, repeating them, and memorizing them until you know them all by heart and don't need to look at your lesson to answer the questions. A parent or an older brother or sister can test you on your memory work by reading you the questions and making sure that you answer every question exactly as it's written in the lesson. Let's just read through the rest of these memory work questions for the sake of this tutorial video. Question number 3. What are the 2 kinds of quantity? The 2 kinds of quantity are multitudes and magnitudes. Question 4. What is a multitude? A multitude is a quantity consisting of disconnected parts as 3 stones or 7 coins. It may be also called a discontinued quantity. Question 5. What are the 2 kinds of multitude? The 2 kinds of multitude are absolute and relative, absolute multitude and relative multitude. Question 6. What is absolute multitude? Absolute multitude is multitude viewed by itself, with no relation to anything else, as even, odd, perfect, and so on. An even multitude, such as the number 2. An odd multitude, such as the number 5. A perfect multitude, such as the number 6, and you'll learn about this later. Question 7. What is relative multitude? Relative multitude is multitude viewed in relation to something else, as greater, smaller, half, double, and so on. Question 8. By what method do we study absolute multitude? We study absolute multitude in arithmetic. Question 9. By what method do we study relative multitude? We study relative multitude in music. Question 10. What is a magnitude? A magnitude is a quantity that is whole and continuous, such as a field, a circle, the universe, and so on. It is also called a continued quantity. So a magnitude is a continued quantity, and above we learned that a multitude is called a discontinued quantity. The two different kinds of quantity. What are the two kinds of quantity? Multitudes and magnitudes. Here we learn the definition of multitude, and here in question 10, we learn the definition of magnitude. Question 11, what are the two kinds of magnitude? The two kinds of magnitude are magnitude at rest and magnitude in motion. Question 11, by what method do we study magnitude at rest? We study magnitude at rest in geometry. Question 12, or question 13. By what method do we study magnitude in motion? We study magnitude in motion in astronomy. And lastly, what then are the four mathematical arts? The four mathematical arts are arithmetic, which is the study of absolute multitude, music, which is the study of relative multitude, geometry, which is the study of magnitude at rest, and astronomy, which is the study of magnitude in motion. These are our 14 memory work questions in Lesson 1. The last task in this lesson is to take the lesson assessment, which is an online quiz. I'm not going to click on this quiz link because I'm not signed in to my CLAA account and I won't be able to see this assessment. But after you've completed steps 1 and 2 for this lesson, you've studied the lesson for mastery, and you've completed the memory work which we just walked through, you feel like you know everything that's taught in the lesson, and you've completed the memory work for all of the questions listed in that memory work section. When you feel like you know all of that material and you're ready to be tested, you go ahead and take your lesson assessment. When you take your assessment, you're not necessarily going to get a perfect score, but you want to pay attention to the questions you get wrong. Go back to your lesson and review to see what you misunderstood or what caused you to get a question wrong, and then retake the assessment. You can take the assessment as many times as you'd like, and you should continue taking it until you finally earn a perfect score and are very comfortable with that assessment. Because at that point, you really should have a sense of mastery of the whole lesson. So that's how we not only study lessons in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, but a walk through this first lesson in Intro to Classical Arithmetic. I hope this tutorial video was a helpful guide for you getting started. If you have any questions as you work through this lesson, please contact us. If there are specific issues in the lesson that need to be explained, I'll happily produce additional videos to add to this one to address those questions one by one. If you just have a specific question you'd like to ask, you can ask that and I'll answer you directly. So good luck with your studies. If you need any help, please contact us, and God bless your study of Lesson 1 and all of your studies in Intro to Classical Arithmetic. God bless.